This is Peace Talks Radio, the series and podcast on peacemaking and nonviolent conflict resolution. I'm series producer Paul Ingalls, today with our co-founder and correspondent Suzanne Kryder, who has our interviews today. On this edition, Suzanne continues her series on healing a country's wounds by talking about the strategy of community building. Past Peace Talks Radio programs in this little series on how a country can heal its wounds were on transitional justice, which uses legally mandated strategies like Truth and Reconciliation Commissions or reparations. Part 2 focused on public dialogues, which see people willingly having conversations with each other to help communities heal. This third program in the series focuses on various other forms of community building. Communities usually share some commonality, such as a location like a neighborhood, or an interest like good food, or an attribute like a similar age or something else. Individuals in communities that need some healing find themselves in these commonality regions, and they can form online or in person to cement that, and then they have the potential to do something for the good of the community. Suzanne Kryder looks into some effective programs in 3 diverse areas of the world that challenge everyone to bring their best to help improve the mood of a place and find common ground with each other to heal. And she begins with a chat with Dr. Yves Garcia, Assistant Professor of City and Metropolitan Planning at the University of Utah, about their asset-based community development approach. They've labeled it ABCD.
This is a very clever acronym, ABCD. Yves, what does that stand for and how does it promote healing?
So ABCD is asset-based community development, and it is a way of looking at the assets of communities, and it promotes healing because often especially when we have like institutions being nonprofits, but also governments and the academia, at times we have looked at communities as deficient, and a lot of the philanthropic work actually asks for grants and studies to see what is lacking with communities, in particular low income communities, and I might add communities of color oftentimes. And we have, in a way, make these communities victims when we should be looking at them as having great assets. So ABCD in this way promotes healing, because I feel that a lot of these institutions have been labeling people in the community, labeling them as people who are homeless, or people maybe like single mothers, um, just youth that is at risk. And there's many ways that people are labeled in communities, and in that way we're making them victims, right? So ABCD is about not looking beyond that to what everybody can contribute to their community, even people who might be experiencing homelessness, or like young people, mothers, people that might have a disability. So again, it's just about what can they contribute to their communities.
You do asset-based community development. So, what are a few of the assets in particular that really help promoting peace?
So in the world of ABCD, we actually talk about 6 assets, and I might say that I think all of them then contribute to peace, but I will tell you what are the 6 assets, right? So the first asset is individuals, and these are like all people in the communities. The first asset. The second one is associations. And what are associations? Well, associations is any few individuals that get together. It might be a walking group or a book club, um, any cultural group, any group of people that get together because they care about something, they have an interest in common, and they get together. And then we have like institutions. So it's thinking about the same organizations that I was talking about, academia, maybe like philanthropies and nonprofits, governments, all of these institutions thinking about libraries, schools, right? They contribute to our community. So we have the physical space, we have exchange, which is the economy, but also thinking about barter and trade, as well as like culture, stories, and histories.
You do a lot of work with Westside Leadership Institute, and you only
Mhm.
teach workshops there in Spanish. So this is part of the community building that you do, and it's in Salt Lake City. For example, can
Mhm.
you tell us a success story of some community on the west side of Salt Lake?
So the west side of Salt Lake City, like many other cities, is divided by a highway, and in I 15 divides the east and the west of the city, and in the west side, there's where you have more industrial uses, and I might add that there's a lot of environmental injustices because of that in the west side, more industrial uses, rail, and this area is like lower income. A lot of immigrants have been moving to the west of Salt Lake City. About this area is about 50% Latino and about one third immigrant. There was a community leader, someone that went through the Westside Leadership Institute, that she was interested in talking about positive stories of the West Side, because a lot of the stories of the West Side were about crime or poverty or negative things. So she wanted to highlight the great things that were happening in the West Side, along with like great people in the West Side and different community projects. So she started a newspaper that's called the Westview Media, and it's a newspaper that is actually like if you move to the west side, you will receive it, even if you didn't um, sign up for it. You will get this like newspaper, and it is a bilingual newspaper, and it is highly successful, and it has been the best place to communicate these ABCD stories, because that was also the framework that they were using for this media.
Eva's for our listeners who want to try asset-based community development, maybe they want to try asset building or asset mapping. So
Yes.
what's something like a small group, they might get a few friends. What's something they could do to do asset mapping?
The important thing is thinking about what is an issue that we can tackle together, or simply share with each other. And that might be just conversation, right? Maybe we're all interested in building community. What does that mean? Let's ask some questions about it and get together for coffee and just talk about our experiences. And the idea is that by starting conversations and listening and seeing what people are passionate about, you can then start to plan to do a project or do an initiative that can be a great contribution to your neighborhood.
That's Evis Garcia, Assistant Professor of City and Metropolitan Planning at the University of Utah. You can hear much more from Suzanne's conversation with Dr. Garcia, either in the hour-long version of our show or in the complete interview with Suzanne at our website, peacetalksradio.com. That's peacetalksradio.com. Now another ground-up community building story as Suzanne talks with Julie Garrow of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. She's been executive director of the Cheyenne River Youth Project ever since it was born in 1988. Suzanne asks her how the project helped handle difficult issues there.
Julie, tell us your nation.
I am a member of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. I'm from the Minikoju Lakota Band of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe.
And you're the executive director of the Cheyenne River Youth Project. So before we start talking about the project, paint us a picture of the Cheyenne River Reservation.
So the Cheyenne River Youth Project is located in Eagle Butte, South Dakota. It is a community of about maybe 4,500 people. It is also the governmental center for the Cheyenne River Reservation. The Cheyenne River Reservation is approximately 3 million square acres. And within its boundaries, you have Eagle Butte, kind of in the center of it. And then you also have about 17 or 18 outlying smaller communities that find their way into Eagle Butte to do business with our tribal government. The reservation is located on the north central plains of South Dakota. So if you were to look at our state capital on a map, you would go straight north about 90 miles, and that's where you would find Eagle Butte. The reservation is bound by the Cheyenne River and the Missouri River.
Tell us a little bit about the physical plant, like the buildings and the programs you offer in those buildings.
You know, so there was this old bar on Main Street called the Little Brown Jug. I understand it was one of the more notorious bars in town, but it was almost the first building that you were greeted by when you entered Main Street. So our tribal chairman at the time decided that's not a really good way to greet people. They bought the building and they offered it to the community. So proposals were presented and they accepted our proposal to turn it into a youth center. So from that point forward, we began working towards building a safe space for kids. And I can tell you, I did not know what I was doing. So we have a campus now. We have the main youth center, which we rebuilt and opened in 1999. We have the teen center, which we opened in 2006. The main youth center has an activity room, a kitchen, volunteer living quarters, a little library, I think it's a computer lab and art studio combined. The teen center, which is about 26,000 square feet, has a dance studio, library, classroom. It has art studio, office spaces, volunteer living quarters, has a gymnasium, fitness center, and then a big warehouse. We just broke ground to build it's called the Wainiatu-Wawapi Lakota Youth Arts and Culture Institute. It'll be about 9,000 square feet, where we will continue to develop our arts and culture programming. We have a 3.5 acre art park where you will find, paintings and graffiti and expressions of young people and people from throughout the communities and elsewhere. We have a 2.5 acre organic garden where we take food and we serve the kids, we share it, we process it, we sell it. We have a very strong social enterprise components. We have a cafe and coffee shop, a food truck. We have a gift shop. Now we have an online store, so you can go there and support us that way. So in the matter of 33 years, we have built a campus that is 100% dedicated to our youth development.
So you mentioned things like language, culture, music. Talk about specifics that the Cheyenne River Youth Project does around those issues.
We work primarily with Lakota youth. That being said, any young person who lives within the boundaries of the reservation, whether you're Native or non-Native, can come and use our services, be enrolled in our programs, because I think that that's community, that's healthy community. What we do every single day is that we remind ourselves, we remind the kids in all of our programming, we're reminding them about who they are as Lakota people, that it's a good thing to be Lakota. So whether you're talking about arts or whether you're talking about wellness or you're talking about even social enterprise, we're reflecting our values as Lakota people. One of the things that, you will find many programs and you will find many people who operate with this idea that, discipline is like you tell kids no, you say no to this or you say no to that. But, I think for us, for many, many years, and how I would rather approach it is that we have our Lakota values. And we have in that toolbox all the values that we need to have a good life. We're talking about generosity or wisdom or courage, honesty. Those values are the things that we talk about with our kids. So, kids are kids. Kids are going to be growing up in a sometimes very crazy situation. And, they come here and maybe they decide that, well, we're going to just go ahead and take this. It's not mine, but I'm going to take it. That happens. That's real. We could, call the police. We could do all that. But I think the more important thing is that we talk to our kids and we say, that wasn't wise. That isn't courage. That isn't a reflection of who you are as a Lakota person. And it certainly does not honor your ancestors. The one thing I think we always talk about is our ancestors, that we stand on the shoulders of those people who, throughout all of this history, governments and other people have tried to destroy us, wipe us out, end us, assimilate us. But yet we had courageous ancestors who survived. So one of the things that we need to do is we need to honor that. And we need to thrive and we need to use our values and we need to get better.
For the listeners who really want to get involved somehow in youth projects, community development, what's a first step they could take in their own community?
I think the one thing you want to do is you want to get onto somebody's newsletter and you want to find out what they're all about. I think another thing you can do is maybe talk to people and say, hey, I know about this youth organization. They're doing good work. They need volunteers. They need supporters. They need allies. So if you have a roof over your head, you have an income, you are doing so well compared to so many people right now who are struggling. So if you don't support us, there are just people who have needs, and kids deserve to not be hungry, and they need a good warm coat. They deserve to go to a school system that honors their indigeneity, or if they're a person of color, they deserve that. So, maybe there's policy work or advocacy work that you have the capacity to do. Maybe you're a lawyer. Maybe you want to offer your terms for women who are in abusive situations and need to get away. But take what your skill set is and use it to help people. You've been given that by a creator. So how nice if you can help somebody else out.
Julie Garrow of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe and longtime executive director of the Cheyenne River Youth Project. You can hear more from her either in the hour-long version of our show or in the complete interview with Suzanne at our website, peacetalksradio.com. That's peacetalksradio.com. I'm Paul Ingalls, the series producer, and today it's the final episode of Suzanne Kryder's three-part mini-series on ways to heal a country's wounds, this time through community building on the grassroots level. Like you'll hear about in the example set by Shani Graham, who's the creator of sustainable, resilient communities in Western Australia, such as one called Eco-Burbia. We are literally going to the other side of the world with our Zoom call. This time, Shani speaks with Suzanne Kryder from Beaconsfield, a suburb of Perth in Western Australia.
Shani, in your TED Talk about leading a sustainable living revolution on Hulbert Street, you said that you really got started on the idea when you and your partner Tim took a class. The class is called Living Smart. So tell us a little bit about the topics in that class. And then I'm curious, was it really about individual change or community change?
Thanks for starting in such a beautiful way. Living Smart has been a big part of our lives for a long time. The course covers 10 topics: living simply, waste, gardening for food, gardening for product for biodiversity, transport, power, energy, healthy you, healthy home, and community. And the idea of the course is that you do a bit of learning with people and the group actually decides what they would like to learn about. Each week you set a goal for yourself saying, I am going to make some changes. And then at the end, we tend to build in that community aspect at the end, once we've worked on some of the things people might make changes on in their own home. So they might start saving water, they might start saving power, they might start thinking about how they're living and living in a simpler way. And then at the end, we tend to go, okay, we've done these things in our own home. What could we do in our local and perhaps our wider community?
When you all lived on Hulbert Street and you did this sustainable living work, one result was people in the community started talking to each other and they built stronger relationships. Now, I know you can't tell us the whole story because it's massively positive, but tell us a couple sustainability actions that you all did that really helped to build community.
Okay, a couple of simple things we did. We started with one house with solar panels on the roof. And by the time we left, 75% of the homes had solar panels. We managed to have two share car schemes where we had an old ute that 4 families shared so that they didn't need to necessarily have a second or third car in the house, and they had something that could carry big bits of wood or whatever it was they needed to collect. And we also had an amazing increase in the amount of food that was actually being grown on people's verges. So we started with, I think, 2 families that had some sort of food growing out the front of their house, up to about 50% by the end of the time that we left. So those were sort of little changes that we made. But I think you articulated well that one of the main things about it was actually the connections that people made, so that when something happened that we needed to work together, like a burglary or a big Hulbert Street sustainability fiesta, we had those connections that were there to be able to do that. And that was turned into quite a powerful movement and process that meant that we could do incredible things, and we did.
It makes me wonder about the boundaries that we set around community, like you're in or you're out. Like, okay, let's say you have a Siamese cat. So you're in the Siamese cat owner community. And if you don't own one, you're not in that community. So that's a boundary. So my question is well, should there be boundaries in communities?
Well, I think there's 2 different types of communities. So there's the Siamese cat community that has a boundary around it, and people go. It might be a community garden, might be a sports club, might be a school. And there are people that are attracted there because of a common interest. And often those groups talk about being inclusive, but they're usually inclusive of people who actually come. My passion, not to say there's anything wrong with communities of interest, but my passion is about communities of geographical location. So at the moment, my geographic community is a group called the West Beaky Bunch. And we've drawn some lines around the major roads where I live, and we've said those 350 houses are the geographic community that we're going to try to develop. And I like that sort of community from a sustainability perspective, because to make sustainable changes, you need to be connecting with people. And I like it from a resilience perspective, because if we have something that causes a shock, whether that be some sort of extreme weather event or whether it be some sort of economic collapse that happens quite quickly, or whether it be COVID, we are going to get the support, and it's been suggested that that support in the immediate 48 hours comes within a kilometre of your house.
The US could really use some advice from Australia because these days lots of people in the US are like afraid, they don't want to go out. They feel that promoting peace means either staying in their home and not interacting with people, or it might mean only hanging out with people who share their views. So, what would you say to them to give some advice?
I think that there are always activities and things you can do, regardless of whether people have the same views. So that's what tends to happen in the community of interest. You go along and people share, and they've got some of the same views together. Whereas if you organize a picnic in your local park, you don't need to worry about people will come no matter what their views. It's not like they're only going to come if they believe in immunization for COVID, or they're only going to come if they believe in, I don't know, the value of Siamese cats in society. So
Yes.
you're going to get people that are coming, and what happens is they discover the things that they have in common rather than the things that they have that drive them apart. So the next activity we're doing with the West Beaky Bunch is a pet parade. And I know that there are people who walk their dogs that don't get on with each other, but I also know that they all love their dogs. And so they're all going to be coming to the pet parade, and they're all going to be able to be enjoying something together and recognizing what we have in common rather than concentrating on what we have apart.
Yeah. A friend of mine who works in environmental issues said like 30 years ago, oh, it's too late, but we can't stop trying.
Yeah. For me, a little bit like your friend, it might be too late, and we're moving from abatement into preparation, I think. And I think in that situation, we are going to need to have connected geographic communities even more so than we did under a phase where we hoped we could abate an issue or abate climate change.
In a video, I heard your partner Tim say that one thing that happened on Hulbert Street is that there's started to be a breakdown of these concepts of people owning stuff like this is mine and that's yours. Why is that breakdown in that idea important?
It's important for so many reasons. From a really practical perspective, we are going to have a problem shipping stuff around the world like we do now. So if 5 people can share a lawnmower, it means we are using less resource to make lawnmowers. If we can take back the idea of common spaces and even land that people are willing to give for common uses, it brings back a sense of community and a sense of civic responsibility and a sense of self-responsibility.
You can hear more from Australian community organizer Shani Graham and from all of our guests in either our hour-long version of this program or in our complete interviews with each of them at our website, peacetalksradio.com. That's peacetalksradio.com, and look for the October 2021 episode. You'll also find partial transcripts of this and all of our episodes, pictures too, and links to many other sources on the topic of community building. It's also where you can make a donation to our little nonprofit organization that's managed to keep this series going since 2002. We also get support from the Albuquerque Community Foundation Ties Fund and some of the stations that carry our program, which graciously donate to us as well. We're all doing this together. I'm Paul Ingalls for Suzanne Kryder and the rest of our team. Thanks for listening to and for supporting Peace Talks Radio.